A very warm welcome to all my students and viewers. This is the Bishop's Heritage School, Patna, and this is assignment number 4 for class 10. The subject is literature in English, and today we'll be doing the poetry The Patriot by Robert Browning. The Patriot by Robert Browning. Now, before I begin the poem, let me give you a brief introduction to the poet. Robert Browning was born on 1812 and died in 1889. He was chiefly interested in the study of the human soul. He was a psychologist. First of all, art with him took second place. He was very famous for his dramatic monologues. Even Patriot is a dramatic monologue. A dramatic monologue is a form of a poem where the speaker narrates or reveals aspect of his character through the narration of series and events from his life. Through dramatic monologues or dialogues, he laid bare the problems of life and conscience, and often philosophical reflections took precedence for the solution to the problems. He allowed his characters to confess their hopes and fears, striking a resemblance to the reader's hopes and fears. In his poems we discern also religious zeal which sustains his characters through the period of crisis. He was son of Robert Browning, a Bank of England clerk, and Sarah Wideman of Scottish-German descent. Just like our own greatest poet, Rabindranath Tagore, he also received formal education in a very little form, and it was his father who helped him with Latin, Greek, as well as Shelley, Byron, and Keats. In 1846, he married Elizabeth Barrett secretly, and they traveled to Italy, where they spent most of their married life. In 1849, they had a son, Robert Penn Browning. After her death in 1861, he returned to England with his son, where he won popularity for his dramatic personae and Ring and the Book. He died in 1889 while holidaying in Venice and was buried at Westminster Abbey. His poems have been criticized for his pedantry and leaving much to the reader's imagination and for the excess of thought over art. But it cannot be denied that he was a fine versifier and possessed an immense command over the language and was a genius of the blank verse. The Patriot by Robert Browning. Now, before I summarize the poem, let me recite the poem The Patriot for you. The Patriot by Robert Browning. It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway, the church spires flamed, such flags they had. A year ago on this very day, the air broke into a mist with bells, the old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your son from yonder skies. They had answered, and afterward, what else? And like it was I who leaped at the sun, to give it my loving friends to keep. Not man could do, have I left undone. And still you see my harvest, what I reap. This very day now a year is run. There's nobody on the housetops now, just a passed few at the windows set. For the best of the sight is all allow at the shambles gate. Or better yet, at the very scaffold's foot I trow. I go in the rain and more than needs. A rope cuts both my wrists behind. And I think by the feel my forehead bleeds. For the fling, whoever has a mind, stores at me for my year's misdeeds. Thus I entered and thus I go. In triumphs people have dropped down dead. Paid by the world, what dost thou owe me? God might question. Now instead, as God shall repay, I'm safer so. Now let me give you a brief summary of the poem The Patriot. The poem begins on a note of rapturous welcome given by the townspeople to the patriot, most probably a war hero. As he enters the town of the pass was strewn with roses and medals all the way. The people had clambered on the rooftops to catch a glimpse of their hero. The church spires were decorated with flaming red flags presenting a scene of festivity. Such was the ovation of the crowd for him that had he asked them to fetch the sun for him, they would have replied, and afterward else they were so loyal to the patriot. The narrator regretfully says that like a true patriot, it was he who had fetched the sun for them in terms of glory, in terms of victory, in terms of pride, in terms of joy for his country, and left no impossible task undone. But exactly a year after this scenario changed dramatically, as again he was being led through the same streets, but now he was being led as a criminal for execution for his misdeeds committed through the year. He was accused of treason, Gaddari. He was labeled as a traitor. This was the harvest he was reaping for achieving the impossible. Now the streets were deserted as all had assembled at the shambles gate to witness his execution. Only a few crippled people, old people, paralyzed people, incapacitated by the ailments, looked out of the window to see him being led in chains. Besides his disgrace and humiliation, whoever had a desire threw stones at him like driving out a leper from their locality. But it is at this point of crisis in his life that he reaffirms his faith in God by saying that God will repay him for his deeds, as he has done no moral wrong. God is always just and fair, and he will feel safe, his soul will feel safe under the blessings of God. One can destroy a body, but soul is always eternal. The Patriot by Robert Browning. It was roses, roses all the way, with Merrill mixed in my path like mad. The house roof seemed to heave and sway. The Patriot by Robert Browning is a poem about a man who has done something great for his country and countrymen. He was most probably a war hero who is returning to his town. Here it is elaborately described how the Patriot is welcomed back with pomp and ecstasy by the townspeople. His path is laden with roses and myrtle. Myrtle is a lily kind of flower, it's a white flower. It would signify love, respect and honor being showered on him. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway, the church spires flamed, such flags they had. The poet is saying that the residents have clambered onto the roofs to get a glimpse of the Patriot, which creates an imagery of the house itself moving and swaying. Actually, people are moving and swaying around with the weight and number of people. The church spires flame. What's a church spire? Church spire is a conical, tall and slender structure at the top of a church. So church spires flame, such flags they had a year ago on this very day. Even the church spires were decorated with fiery or fiery colored flags. The bright color of the flags made the church spires look like they were on fire and flames were engulfing them. So they were carrying red, orange and yellow colored flags which resembled the flames being lifted up in a church to guide the passers-by during night time. In the last line, the poet discloses to the reader that these events occurred on this date exactly a year ago. So a year ago he received a heroic welcome. Things are not so hunky-dory at this present point of time, which we'll come to later on. The Patriot. Let's come to stanza number 2. The air broke into a mist with bells. The Patriot is saying that the entire environment and ambience was filled with the sound of the ringing bells from the church. People were ringing bells for the Patriot as they were cheering him, cheering up for him, they were honoring him. The entire ambience was totally filled with the sound of the ringing bells, just like a fog fills up the atmosphere during winter time or during early morning. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. People were standing on the old walls, they were shouting and screaming and cheering up for the Patriot as if the old walls were about to collapse. Had I said, the Patriot is saying the people were so loyal, his countrymen were so loyal to him, if he would have commanded them, good folk, mere noise repels, but give me your sun from yonder skies. Just by making noise, you cannot prove your loyalty towards me. If you want to prove your loyalty towards me, go to the distant sky and fetch the sun for me. Not literally, just to prove their loyalty towards him. They would have done so and they would have counter-replied, and afterward, what else? What will be your next command? We are ready to fulfill that as well. They were so loyal to him a year ago on this very day when the Patriot was hero for his countrymen. The Patriot goes on to say that, "Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun. I asked my people to fetch sun from the distant sky, but it was I who actually brought sun for them, in terms of glory, in terms of joy, in terms of peace, in terms of victory, in terms of pride. I won the battle for my countrymen. I brought the victory for them to cherish for life, to give it my loving friends to keep. Not man could do, have I left undone." This can be deciphered by the use of alack or alas. It's an expression of sadness. Also, the last two lines indicate towards this as the Patriot moans about how his deed has been repaid by the people. What I achieved for my countrymen could not have been achieved by any person in this world. If I would have let my task incomplete, nobody could have completed it. And you see my harvest, what I reap, this very day now a year is run. His harvest is what he has reaped, whereas what he had sown was bringing glory, power and honor to the people. The first two stanzas narrate the incidents of a year back when the Patriot was given celebrity status. This stanza acts as a synopsis to the current events. The third stanza is like a bridge for the transition from the past to the present. The Patriot, stanza number 4. Now we time travel to the present moment where the Patriot was being treated as a villain by his own people. He was being charged or accused of an act of treason or Dari against his own country. So from Patriot he has become a traitor now, although he didn't do any such thing against his country. So he's saying he was going to the gallows now. He was going to be executed. He was going to be publicly hanged at the Shambles Gate. Shambles Gate is an arena, an enclosed arena, where a person used to be publicly hanged for any kind of criminal offense. So he's saying there's nobody on the housetops now. No one is there. No one is standing on the house roofs cheering up for him. Just a placid few at the window set. Just a few crippled old people are there because beggars can't be choosers and they cannot move anywhere. Therefore, they are there. Why people are not there? Because they have gone to the Shambles Gates where the patriot was about, the war hero was about to be executed to capture the best of the view. For the best of the sight is all allowed at the Shambles Gate, because the best of the sight is not here beside the window, but at the Shambles Gate. Or better yet, to get a better view, people have gone to the very scaffold's foot. Scaffold's foot is a wooden raised platform where a person used to be hanged or beheaded. Sarkar deta tha. So he's saying people have gone there, gathered there to view his public execution. He would be killed now. Now he's being charged of committing something against the country which he hasn't done. And from a patriot, from a hero, he's become a villain. From a patriot, he's become a traitor. The patriot goes on to say that, I go in the rain and more than needs. I was walking in the rain to the gallows where I was about to be executed. And it was raining more than required. As if heavens were crying, the sky was crying. The sky has been given in quality of human. Sky was crying because of my sad state. A rope cuts both my wrists behind. The rope was tied so tightly around my wrist that it was gushing through my skin and my skin was getting cut. And I think by the feel, my forehead bleeds. And I was feeling a kind of painful feeling I was having, as if my forehead was bleeding. Why so? For the fling, whoever has a mind, whoever had a mind there, whoever had a brain there, the only thought in the brains of the people at that point of time was to hurt the patriot, and therefore they were flinging or throwing stones at a higher velocity. They were hurling stones towards the patriot to injure him. Stones at me for my years' misdeeds. They were throwing stones at me because they thought that I did something wrong against the country. They considered me to be a villain, which I wasn't. I wasn't a villain. The patriot here is walking in the rain, heading towards the gallows. His wrists are tied tightly behind his back with a rope that cuts through the skin. He's being led disgracefully towards the gallows. He can feel blood trickling down his forehead, but is unsure as his hands are bound, so he can't touch and feel. His cuts are because of the stones being flung at him by anybody and everybody. This stanza depicts a very pitiable scene that is in stark contrast with the imagery of the first and the second stanza. The patriot says that he is being punished for the misdeeds that he has committed within this 1 year. It can be inferred that most probably he has indulged in acts of treachery, betrayal, or any such unpatriotic act which the people considered him to have done, but he didn't do so. This conclusion can be reached keeping the title of the poem in mind. Now we come to the concluding stanza of the poem. The patriot goes on to say that, thus I entered and thus I go. Thus I entered like a hero. I received a heroic welcome in the hands of my people a year ago, and thus I'm leaving like a villain. I entered like a hero. I was a patriot at that point of time. I was considered to be a patriot by my people. I'm still a patriot, but now I've become a villain in their eyes. This is the common destiny of a hero. The rise and fall of a hero. A person is being made hero by us, we public, and we are the same public who makes that person a villain. In times people have dropped down dead. He's trying to console himself that to achieve victory for one's country, people have sacrificed their lives. They have become martyr. So what, I didn't become a martyr a year ago when I won a very improbable victory in a battle for my country. Maybe I'm dying now, so this is my time to become a martyr. Shahadat mujhe abhi naseeb ho rahi hai. So now I'm becoming a martyr. I'm sacrificing my life. I'll be dying now. I didn't die at that point of time. Paid by the world, what dost thou owe me? God might ask. Question. He's saying that after death I might encounter or confront God, and God might ask me, you have already been paid by the world. They did give you your reward by killing you, getting you killed, by destroying your mortal body. What do you owe me? What do you want from me? Now instead it is God shall repay, I am safer so. And he will reply in that point of time to God that maybe my mortal body was destroyed, but you can always take care of my soul under the shadows of eternal blessing. If God asked him now that he has been paid for his deeds by the world, what more does he owe to God? He would reply optimistically, saying that his real repayment will be done by God. He's placing his trust in God as he knows that he has committed no moral wrongs and the Almighty is always just and fair. Hence, his soul will be always safe with God.